You are speaking to a man who has kidnapped all your friends and forced them to play a game. You ask him to let them go. He replies,
I can't do that right now.
You ask him why he does this. He replies,
'Cause I like to. I thought it would be fun.
You ask him if he will stop, and he replies,
There's 6 more eliminations left.
There is a popular trope of emotionless antagonists in media. Typically, their complete detachment from morality comes from a place of cruelty. However, in the case of the person you're speaking to, it comes from a place of ignorance. The reason you can't save your friends isn't because the person in front of you is some deranged, evil mastermind, but rather a person who lacks any self-awareness. You can't get through to them because they are unable to apply the concept of right and wrong in the first place. Their mindset is akin to a childlike simplicity of wanting to do what they think is fun, without any understanding of how it impacts others. Because in their head, others don't exist at all. They're not people with lives or emotions, they're just contestants. So we're talking about someone who tortures others in some sick game because they find it fun, and they simply can't comprehend that what they're doing is even considered a form of torture. And here he is. Wait, don't click off, don't click off.
Like and subscribe.
Looking at the picture, you'd assume this is some villain character from the YouTube Kids side of this website, which would be wrong because obviously that side of YouTube is perfectly sane. If you're more of an internet history geek, then you'd recognize that this is a character from an object show. Object shows are web animated series that include a cast of inanimate objects, competing in a game show within a pretty basic setting of an open field, for the sake of winning some sort of prize. Think Total Drama Island, but with screaming erasers instead of people. The first extremely popular object show was created by the Huang twins, and it's called Battle for Dream Island. This series established the object show genre, as many following series would be inspired by BFDI. So object shows use the fact that the objects are anthropomorphic for the sake of comedy, and can include a lot of similar tropes established by BFDI, with a primary feature being how the show depends on audience participation through votes. This enables the audience to directly take part in the process of deciding how the story will go. Interestingly enough, the series we are talking about today is one that is extremely different from other object shows. One serves as a unique deconstruction of the object show genre, giving way to one of the most genuinely unnerving antagonists that I would remember long after I finished watching the web series. So, what is One? One is an animated web series created by CheesyHfj, shout out to their channel, which many call one of the greatest object shows of all time because of its unconventional approach to the genre. While other object shows start off already in the arena with a bunch of objects whose only human-like characteristics are that they have voices and distinct personalities, One actually begins in a world that mirrors our own, showing our protagonist, Liam, having a normal day at work. Right off the bat, we are expected to view Liam as a person, not just as an object with a voice. He talks with his coworker, gets on his bike to head home, and disappears. Not including Liam, there are 5 other people that are teleported into this arena. But the one thing they all have in common is how the contestants of the game show started off already having normal lives. This becomes the driving conflict that influences how they act in the competition, and how they act towards Airy, the host. Some characters are eager to get back to their normal lives, while others don't have much of an attachment to the real world and are enticed by Airy's so-called prize, a wish for anything they want. One thing I want to highlight is that throughout the majority of the series, we don't actually see Airy, but rather only hear his voice. Since he's not actually in the playing field, any interaction he has with other characters can't exactly be retaliated against. already establishing a sort of power dynamic between Airy and the contestants. I'm going to give a quick summary of the events of one, while highlighting every instance Airy's twisted personality is on display during the competition. Thankfully, the first episode already has plenty of these moments. When confronted for his motivation for picking these specific people to compete, Airy is either cryptic or completely deflective.
Why us, specifically?
You six are here specifically to compete in my competition. Called one.
He starts off by giving the characters new names that are easier to remember. Comically, they're just titled after their respective object or appearance.
My name is Taylor.
How do you like your new name, magazine?
One YouTube comment pointed out how this scene represents one's parody of the genre. These objects have genuine lives and identities, yet Airy still strips them of their identities to force them to conform with the stereotypical object show that he wants to create. Speaking of the contest, the first challenge is to stand on top of a tall wooden pillar without touching the ground. Airy tells them to stand back while he drops the stakes. Okay, well, let's see who gets eliminated first. It says here that it was a baby? Wait, why is there a baby in a game show?
What happened? What just happened?
Yeah, so that's a hilarious but clear-cut way of establishing what type of host Airy is. This area called the plane is obviously not meant to mirror reality because Airy has the ability to respawn the players. But if Airy truly had the ability to choose who he teleported here to force him to compete, why would he pick a literal toddler? Right off the bat, we as the audience know that Airy's moral compass is distorted. We can also tell that he doesn't actually care for the contestants' well-being, as he could have easily put in the basic effort of at least checking where he was dropping the ginormous stabby stakes. After all of these characters just watched a toddler get impaled and have their captor brush it over, Soda Bottle rightfully calls out how they're being held captive by a psychopath. While most contestants last a while, they are under the impression that this is the only challenge they have to complete. However, Airy finally explains that even if they do fall, they're technically not fully eliminated. After 2 contestants lose this round, the audience, which we assume means us, the YouTube viewers, will vote someone off, and there will be new rounds until one winner remains. CheesyHfj expertly subverts the audience participation feature of the typical object show. While other shows might have viewers vote off an annoying character that they don't want to see anymore, in this case, the viewers are aware that these are human-based characters that have their own lives that they wish to return to. Unsurprisingly, Tomato the baby gets voted off due to concern for their well-being. That means Backpack, is safe from elimination, despite having been the second contestant to fall. Oh, and he also broke his leg when he fell, which will be very important later. For now, though, Airy informs us that for each round he will spawn in 6 new contestants. Yet these new objects are a bit different from our original cast. While the characters we know came from a universe where objects exhibit human-like behaviors and participate in a society like ours, the second batch are objects that live in a world alongside actual human beings, and they just conceal the fact that they're sentient. Think of Toy Story, but you are sitting on a chair that's alive. Poor subway seat. As you can imagine, the new contestants find the plane in Airy's game show as a welcome change from their original world. They compete in the next challenge of climbing to the top of the wooden stakes. Meanwhile, Backpack, Soda Bottle, and Senti are eager to go home and refuse to participate, hoping that their inaction will convince Airy to let them leave. Instead of giving in, Airy ignores their demands and opts to make the challenge easier by lowering the wooden stakes closer to the ground, while continually reminding them of the prize. Airy's attitude towards unwilling contestants doesn't change throughout the course of one. He never gets angry or purposefully intimidates anyone, but rather he continues to remind them of the prize or repeatedly asks them to participate in his typical monotone voice. It's frustrating to watch, but the audience knows that this is necessary for the plot, since Airy has to keep these people here in order for the show to continue. Regardless, Soda Bottle and Senti refuse to participate, sticking by Backpack in protest of how he got injured. But ultimately, Backpack trips and accidentally touches the top of the stake that's literally 2 inches from the ground at this point. So his friends also choose to touch the stake in order to not get eliminated and remain in the plane to support him. A sense of solidarity is fostered between them, as all of them have a similar dislike of being forced into Airy's competition, and all have a common desire to go home together rather than abandoning one another. These three exhibit a closer bond compared to their fellow contestants, but in the next episode, their trio will become separated as things get a little bit more complicated. The final batch of new contestants are teleported to the plane. However, they aren't all from one particular universe compared to the previous people. Rather, each of them seem to be unique characters that Airy chose to spice up the competition. For our purposes, however, the two most important newbies are Stone, a silent rock that can't speak, and Texty, a silent text box that speaks through typing. Stone silently introduces himself using accurately animated sign language, and thankfully his statement is subtitled since I can't read stick figure hands. He states he knows everything that has, is, and will happen in the universe. As Airy explains the next challenge, we see Stone panic as he attempts to say something to Soda Bottle, while frantically pointing at the sky. Soda Bottle doesn't understand what Stone wants from him, so he ends up getting shoved out of the way before a cassette recorder suddenly falls where he was originally standing. While Soda Bottle was angry at first, thinking Stone was trying to start a fight, he realized that Stone was trying to save him from getting hit by the cassette player. Maybe what calmed him is the flashback of what could have alternatively happened to him. So it's established that Stone is different from the others since, true to his word, he has the knowledge about what is going to happen in the future of one. Except he's unable to communicate it, so he has to resort to taking physical action, which can cause some conflicts to arise. Airy informs the contestants to form groups of 4 for the next challenge, in which one team member has to run to a tree in the distance to guarantee their team's victory. Stone is adamant on forming a team with himself, Texty, Soda Bottle, and Backpack, which would leave Senti out of the original trio that had decided to stick together. Stone carries over Texty while shoving Senti away, who is rightfully not too happy about Stone's sudden choice to separate them all. However, Stone claps his hands and Airy confirms their team placement, so Senti leaves and decides to team up with contestants that were from the second universe. After hearing them talk about how they wanted to leave the plane, Senti takes on a sort of leadership role, advising the team not to participate and lose every round so that they can be eliminated quickly. But Stone, for some reason, doesn't want Senti's team to lose, and actively attempts to make sure that both his team and Senti's team are safe from elimination. Texty types his way to the tree, funnily enough. Meanwhile, Stone sneaks over, grabs one of the members, and runs to the tree. Senti tries to chase him, but he still reaches the finish line and ensures that her team wins. Senti's extremely upset and lashes out at Stone, and later on, she complains to Backpack and Soda Bottle that Stone is ruining her plan to get home. Backpack tries to reassure her that since Texty made sure that their team won the challenge, they'll still all be together for the next round. He also argues that Stone doesn't seem to have any bad intentions since he did save Soda Bottle's life earlier. Regardless, Senti asks them to make sure Stone doesn't try anything funny in the next round. She doesn't have to wait for long since the next episode will be the last time Stone is on screen, as Airy demonstrates a subtle but terrifying shift in character, completely changing everything we assumed we knew about the competition. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The next challenge is to draw on sticky notes for 5 minutes, and the team judged to have the worst drawings will be up for elimination. While Senti's team immediately snaps their pencil and rips up all of their sticky notes, Stone grabs his team's notes and starts drawing. Backpack repeatedly asks him to stop, but Stone refuses and hands him over a sticky note which we see has a bunch of numbers written on it in a nonsensical order. These notes will be extremely important, but more on that later. After finishing, Stone only has a minute left, and he runs over to Senti's team, trying to steal her notes, but Senti refuses to let Stone get his way and keeps him from touching the sticky notes. Stone, feeling panicked with only 10 seconds left, decides to race back to his team and shoves their sticky notes inside of Backpack forcefully. We're not going to talk about the anatomical implications of this, but where are his organs? Airy judges that even though Senti's team didn't draw anything, he can't find the sticky notes for Backpack's team, which is arguably worse, so they're the ones up for elimination. At this point, Senti is extremely frustrated and yells at Airy for his seemingly disorganized and inconsistent manner of overseeing the competition.
I didn't see them riding.
What do you mean you didn't see them? He was writing on them the entire time. And the only reason you can't see the notes is because Stone stuffed them inside of backpack.
I didn't see that either.
Airy, are you blind? That's all they've been doing this entire time. It baffles me how unbelievably incompetent you are. How hard is it to understand that you've separated us from our livelihoods to play this maniacal excuse of a game show, just to torture us and keep us from living a life you clearly don't have?
Up until now, Airy has been an apathetic and passive host. He doesn't taunt the contestants or actively engage with them for his amusement. He also chooses not to address anyone's discontent at being forced to compete, since he always ignores their active protesting or the reasonable complaints they shout at him. The games don't seem to be planned out ahead of time, since they're simple and typically reuse the materials from past rounds or things that are already in the environment of the plane. Airy argues that he didn't see anything that Senti said happen, which reveals to the audience that Airy isn't some omnipotent presence that always oversees the competition, but rather he has the capability to walk away and not watch what's occurring. This is a small instance of foreshadowing that you might miss on your first watch of one, since I originally just thought that this whole altercation was to hammer in the image of Airy as an airhead host. But the episode doesn't end here. We see Stone frantically write things down on sticky notes before Airy eliminates him. But wait, how did Airy eliminate him before the video episode even ended? If this is an object show and every single episode we're under the assumption that CheesyHfj is letting us viewers vote using the link in the description, then why? This reveal completely flips one on its head, and it derails the stereotypical object show. In the instance of the first elimination, where it was safe to assume that the majority of viewers would want the baby to be safe, CheesyHfj deliberately made it seem like voter participation was a real feature of the show. Yet now, he's reframed Airy's entire character by having Stone perform the role of a meta character. Since Stone is all knowledgeable, his final message doesn't only serve to inform Backpack and Soda Bottle that Airy is in complete control of who gets to go home, he also informs us, the audience, of that same fact. So it's obvious that Airy purposefully got rid of Stone once he became aware of what Stone was trying to hide, thanks to Senti's snitching, and it's the first instance of Airy exercising his power to actively go against what the audience may have wanted, since I think most viewers would have likely voted out Backpack due to his injury. This shift in how Airy actively made sure that his competition would not be sabotaged by Stone demonstrates that he will step in to do something if it means ensuring that the show continues the way that he wishes. It's a subtle layer added to his character, but don't worry, he still has his typical bored, deadpan voice.
And welcome to this competition called One.
The dramatic tone shift continues into the next episode, where neither Backpack nor Soda Bottle choose to take part in the challenge to do 100 push-ups, as both are dejected after being the only ones to read Stone's message. Since Senti's team also doesn't participate, Airy decides to put both teams up for elimination. While Senti is excited that she finally has a chance to go home, Backpack and Soda Bottle know that her pleas won't make much of a difference. Instead, Airy chooses to eliminate Texty, a choice that makes sense since Stone made it pretty obvious that he was desperate to have Texty on his team for some unknown reason. Airy realizes that this could spell trouble for him in the future, so he decides to nip the possibility in the bud sooner than later. In the next episode, One begins to display how much of a toll the competition is taking on its contestants. After Senti explains that she really thought acting happy to be eliminated would convince viewers to vote her off, Soda Bottle attempts to explain the message that Stone left for them. However, they're interrupted by Airy dropping a pool into the plane, and while Airy explains the next challenge, Backpack realizes something.
The first team to have a member think
Help me get the cast off.
will be voted out first.
Airy! Airy, stop!
Airy!
Two,
Airy, don't go yet!
go.
Airy!
Yeah, so throughout the course of one, there hasn't been any deaths since, But as I said earlier, this episode is going to force viewers to confront the gravity of what's happening. We know these objects have the same minds as humans, so it's fair to say that they probably want to avoid the painful experience of dying, even if they know that they'll be respawned. Regardless, Backpack drowns, and we meet him in the new location, a waiting room, where he sits down next to a toothpaste object, and it's quiet and peaceful. Until...
Which means backpack and soda bottle will be put up for elimination.
Backpack, talk to us. What happened?
Backpack is traumatized, rightfully so, and it goes to show how much his competition is impacting him and his fellow contestants. What separates one from other object shows is the fact that these characters are from a reality that mirrors our own. Ultimately, it serves to elevate the writing of these characters and compels the audience to empathize with them. Even if Airy has the ability to respawn contestants, the stakes of the show are no longer about who gets sent home, but rather whether you can return home without experiencing any extra mental torture due to Airy's lack of concern for what happens to you, and his unchecked control over your life until he decides to let you go. Thankfully, Airy announces that both Backpack and Soda Bottle are up for elimination, since they both failed to stay afloat in the pool. Backpack grapples with what he just experienced as he explains to Soda Bottle what he saw when he was waiting to be respawned. They have a heart-to-heart conversation, believing that this is the last chance they will ever have to do so. They discuss how even if they return home, they're going to have to remember what they went through, as well as worry about the friends they left behind. Soda Bottle is eliminated off-screen, leaving Backpack and Senti in the plane. Backpack's gradual mental deterioration as he remains in Airy's world is on full display as he begins to hallucinate in the next episode. Senti witnesses how distraught Backpack has become, and she decides to selflessly win the next challenge for her team, in order for Backpack to be put up for elimination. Since he's the only one left on his team, Airy has no choice but to send Backpack home. This is a heartfelt sacrifice for Senti, who's been extremely adamant at leaving the plane. But she says that Backpack is the one who deserves to leave the most, after all the traumatizing things he went through. She apologizes for originally prioritizing herself over him, and she reassures him that she doesn't mind remaining in one for a bit longer, if it means that she knows that he's back home safe. Aw, that's a sweet moment. I'm sure our host Airy will honor their wishes and...
Okay, the person eliminated is...
Yeah, that plan didn't really work out now, did it? This moment genuinely freaked me out because it was the first time we heard Airy's voice display any emotion at all throughout the entirety of one. Meaning that the only time Airy, our beloved passionless host, actually expresses himself in a human-like manner is when he's in physical pain. Keep that in mind. During Airy's absence, Backpack roams around the plane and discovers a giant aux plug and the cable that's plugged into the ground. It's revealed that one takes place on a tiny planet. The contestants of one may have originally thought that Airy was simply injured, and that he would return to the show.
If it's really only been 4 days, 6 eliminations ago, you should be out of here like a week later.
But as more and more time passed, it's not hard to assume that they believed he was dead, and that they would be stuck in the plane forever. Over the course of the next 5 months, the contestants have kept themselves busy with tasks such as removing the wooden stakes from the ground, or creating a board game from the wood. However, we can assume from Senti's line about Backpack seeming happier after letting go, that Backpack originally was taking Airy's absence the hardest. Understandable, since he was so close to getting home. He attempts to destroy the plug or pull it out of the plane to no avail, but at some point he gives up, instead choosing to spend time with the others. Okay, so the contestants have come to terms with their circumstances and have found solace in one another. That's sweet. I'm sure no one will come and ruin it.
Hey guys, I'm back. We can start the elimination soon.
Back in the real world, we are shown the extent of the damage Airy's little game has done to its unwilling participants. Liam, attempts to return to his previous life in San Francisco. It's an episode without a single word spoken. A solemn track plays as we see how Liam has nothing left to return to. He's presumed dead, his previous job's building's up for lease, and just as he and Soda Bottle had predicted during their last conversation, he can't forget what happened to him in the plane. All alone, dejected, and stuck in a hailstorm, Liam sits down in a nearby alley and takes out the notes Stone placed inside of him. Most notes list names with random number codes, but one lists an address to an apartment in Bridgeport. Earlier in the series, Soda Bottle and Backpack both revealed which states they lived in. With nothing to lose, Liam heads to find Soda Bottle since he mentioned that he lived in Connecticut, the state where the address is listed. Liam hitchhikes for about a week, and when he finally reaches the destination from the note, he nervously knocks on the door. And this is the reaction he's met with. While Soda Bottle is obviously shaken, Liam attempts to explain how he found his apartment because of the notes Stone left behind. But he doesn't understand what all of the messages mean. He hopes that Soda Bottle can help him in his mission to stop Airy's competition, but the door doesn't open again. Frustrated, Liam lashes out.
I cannot live the rest of my life without knowing what or why this happened. If you were maimed and tortured by the hands of someone else, wouldn't you want to do something about it? Worst part is, he just left. Yeah, after you were eliminated, he just dipped for 7 months and left us there with nothing. And for you to be totally complicit ticks me off. You saw me die. You saw me drown in that pool, and you were there afterwards to comfort me. Where is that Soda Bottle? Do you just not care anymore? You seriously want to live your life forgetting that some sociopath sent us all to an inescapable planet with living text boxes and shape-shifting triangle people from a different world?
My God, bro.
Yeah, after that embarrassment, I'd cry too. Liam returns, and his strategy is to sit in front of Soda Bottle's apartment because he has to come out at some point. And he does. Only after he asks Liam if Senti is still stuck in the plane. Despite officially teaming up, Bryce says that he only decided to let Liam inside because he had work in 10 minutes and couldn't remain in his apartment. See, while Airy took everything away from Liam, Bryce found a newfound appreciation for his previous mundane life that he resented. This is a driving force of conflict for the duo for the next couple of episodes. As Liam is adamant about figuring out the mystery of the notes, Bryce doesn't want to risk his own livelihood. Regardless, Liam was right in assuming that Bryce would be able to decipher some of the notes' meanings, particularly one that has the last name Silva with a laptop drawn on it. An interesting moment happens as Bryce and Liam drive to his friend Bradley Silva's house. For the past day, Liam has kept addressing Bryce as Soda Bottle, which rightfully angers him as he tells Liam that he has an actual name that Airy didn't give him. Liam replies that Soda Bottle never told him his real name. They both introduce themselves by their real names, but this scene symbolizes how Liam's mind is still heavily attached to his time spent in the plane, while Bryce is now focused on reality and even forgets that he never told Liam his name while in the game show. When they finally arrive at his friend's house, Bryce asks about the laptop, prompting Bradley to explain that it was no longer allowing him to type into the search engine, so he's trying to sell it. After buying the laptop and heading back to the apartment, Liam tries to look for anything useful on it, to no avail. Bryce becomes impatient and argues with Liam again.
For once, my
Did you
life...
just pinch yourself?
My life is actually going how I want it to. I'm not going to jeopardize my livelihood for the sake of some scraps of paper. You can do whatever you want with these, but I don't want a part of this.
What about Senti?
What about her?
What about her? Before you let me in, you asked if Senti was still there, and I told you yes. So I guess you just don't care about her anymore?
You didn't care to bring her up yourself the entire time you were standing in front of my door, so why are you here?
And Taxi's back. Now we have every single person Stone made sure became a single team. Although Taxi was only in the plane for a couple of days, they still decided to try and research as much as they could about ONE. What they found was something called the Plane Database, which contains information about all of the contestants of ONE, even older ones. This is a small detail, but one of the contestants of the game show's first season is Julian. Remember the guy stuck in the vegetative state back in the waiting room? Well, now we have confirmation that Airy actually placed him there and likely forgot to respawn him. We found out later that he was forgotten there for over 10 years. Just another instance of Airy's inhumane actions against others being due to his own gross negligence. You know, maybe Senti had a point calling the guy incompetent. Afterwards, Liam attempts to convince Bryce that the numbers on the sticky notes might be specific channels on a radio station, which could work if used on the radio he saw back in the waiting room. Yet the only way to reach that room is to die, and I don't think either of them wanted to explore that option. However, Liam notices that one of the notes has the image of a smokestack on a rainy day. And since there is a nearby smokestack in Bridgeport, and it's currently raining, he wants to go search for clues. Bryce immediately refuses the plan, arguing that it's illegal and extremely dangerous. Consequently, Liam decides to steal Bryce's car and go there by himself. After totaling Bryce's car because Liam can't drive, they have one final argument in the rain.
This has gone too far. You are not going to do this.
What do I have to lose? Huh? I'm dead to this world, soda bottle. Don't you get it?
Soda bottle. Liam called him soda bottle. Liam runs away to the smokestack, and Bryce selflessly decides to help him. Oh no, he just wanted his car keys back. The waiting room is an interesting environment compared to the ones we've seen so far. We start off with several people panicking as one object calls out a person's name and seemingly runs towards them. While Liam has the default version of the waiting room, Bryce pictures the area as his childhood neighborhood. He sees his sister, Stella, and remains in a daze until Liam snaps him out of it. If each person has a different appearance for the room, it can be assumed that in order to pass on to the afterlife, they need to follow another person who they have an attachment to, who's already passed on. Bryce and Liam sit down and turn the antenna of the radio to the frequency on the note titled Stone, transporting them to an alternate universe. It takes them a few tries, though. Throughout this ordeal, Stella repeatedly calls out to Bryce, tempting him to follow her. But Liam, once again, keeps him tethered to reality, which I'm sure Bryce greatly appreciates.
Serious business, Tony. I can't have you. Are these your friends?
No, sir. I don't know these guys.
God.
They just...
Take these three gentlemen to the scooping room.
No, not the scooping room!
What?
Let go of me!
What the heck is going on?
At long last, they reach Stone's universe, except it's a dark room filled with stones that aren't anthropomorphic. Technically, there's no way out because there's no immediate threat that would cause their deaths and grant them re-entry into the waiting room. But texture reveals that the plane database includes a unique unalive command for each contestant, which can eliminate them. Although they couldn't uncover any new information about Stone, Liam and Bryce make a huge discovery. The note with SF written on it stands for San Francisco, meaning that they have the ability to return to their Earth alive. Which is perfect, since Texty notifies them that the laptop they reside in only has about 10% battery left. Bryce and Liam purchase a charger and have a toast to celebrate making progress in understanding what Stone left behind. They ultimately promise to save the contestants of one. In a heartfelt moment, Liam and Bryce agree to visit each other once this is all over and they're both permanently back on Earth. They wait for Texty to execute the command to send them back to the waiting room.
All right, sending us back in 3, 2,
Bryce?
1.
So, Airy just demonstrated new levels of psychotic. He decided he wanted to make things more interesting by allowing someone the privilege of rejoining, that person being Bryce, or I guess now it's Soda Bottle. This scene, I think, perfectly encapsulates Airy's complete detachment from reality, or lack of any regard for others beside himself. Over the course of one, he has never mentioned the fact that he has the ability to re-teleport someone into the plane at his own discretion.
We're done being your toys! You've tortured, broken, and robbed us from our lives for too long! Send us home!
He never acknowledges Soda Bottle about what utter disregard for his life he's just displayed by taking him away from his world against his will again, despite Soda Bottle repeatedly expressing how he didn't want to participate in the competition. I mean, why would Airy take any accountability for his actions? As far as he's concerned, he's having fun. He enjoys having people compete in one, and he chooses Soda Bottle deliberately because he thinks it'll be amusing. Might I remind you, there were other early contestants that enjoyed competing and wanted to win the prize. Why not bring them in instead? But Airy doesn't see these characters as real people. He has completely stripped them of their personhood in his own mind, and serves to make them adhere to his control in order to create a game show that is interesting for him. Naturally, he won't possess any sense of empathy that'll dissuade him from kidnapping Soda Bottle again. And he can't comprehend how cruel and deranged it is to give these people a false sense of hope that they can escape permanently. And now, everyone currently in the plane knows that even if they do get eliminated, Airy can simply bring them back into his sick world. We can see the toll his deranged actions have on the contestants that have been stuck here for months, especially Senti.
You, Backpack, and Soda Bottle were out to leave no matter what it took. That doesn't sound appealing to you anymore? Your house? Your friends? Family? You had a name, didn't you? We've been here for months together and we've never told each other our names.
Your name was Amelia, right?
Ever since the beginning of One, Senti has been extremely confrontational towards Airy and eager to head back to her prior life. Yet, after spending about 7 months in the plane, she's become hesitant and uncertain if she wants to return. This is likely due to her trauma back when Airy disappeared. She had to force herself to abandon any hope of the possibility that she'd be able to return home and once again become Amelia, the yoga instructor with her own life, aspirations, and identity. Another point for Airy completely ruining another person's psyche. I think that's 4 now? While Senti struggles with Stockholm Syndrome, Liam ends up in the waiting room again, and he figures out what happened to Soda Bottle by checking the plane database. In a fit of rage, Liam switches the radio channel to the frequency of the sticky note titled Airy, resolving to confront Airy once and for all. Airy's long-awaited reveal to the audience is nothing short of eerie. Up until now, he's had a disembodied voice, but now we get to see the face behind these sick games. Liam ends up in a forest and comes across a cave covered in vines. Inside, he finds Airy sitting at a computer with a couple of floating miniature planets.
Hi.
Do you realize how much suffering you've caused me? Do you realize the torture you put so many innocent people through? You apathetic, deranged psychopath! End this, now!
Can I just mention how satisfying it is to finally have someone directly insult Airy face to face? Yet this satisfying moment ultimately serves to frame how pointless Liam's desire to convince Airy is. If Airy's been apathetic throughout the entirety of One, why would he change now? Airy continues to refuse to send anyone home in his monotone voice. When other antagonists in fiction are confronted by the protagonist, even if they are the emotionless type, they still display some sort of reaction towards the main character. Airy doesn't come off as maniacal or sinister here. He gives surface-level responses to Liam's demands and nonchalantly refuses to stop One. When Liam attempts to use the computer to send everyone home, Airy remarks it took him a while to figure it out, implying that only Airy himself can teleport the contestants back to their original universes. Liam is rightfully annoyed.
You like killing people for your own enjoyment? You like stabbing babies with giant wooden poles, Airy?
I thought it would be fun.
So there's 2 responses people typically have when they are called out on their mistakes. If you're a generally decent person, you'll apologize and take accountability. If you aren't remorseful at all, or enjoyed hurting others, you might deflect the blame or express some stereotypical sense of evil pride at what you've done. Airy does neither. He doesn't even address the baby thing. He just remarks that he thought it would be fun to create One. The only reason a person would give such a simple response is because he's so far detached from reality that he doesn't even perceive others as tangible beings. If he did perceive these objects as actual people, he'd naturally have any sort of reaction towards Liam's jabs at him. But in Airy's mind, he respawned the baby, and he can still have fun, so no harm, no foul. While Airy walks out after once again declining Liam's demand with a simple no, Liam tries talking to Texty, updating them on the situation. Unfortunately, this isn't an option because Airy is currently the only person who can decipher the computer's program. Airy heads to collect reads, Liam follows and continues questioning him. He confirms that Airy is alone here, and that the location offers Airy the ability to create planets, one of them being the plane. Then, we have another instance of Airy displaying an emotion.
So what are you up here for? You gonna take me out with something behind those reeds?
What? No, I'm just collecting reeds.
Airy is shocked at Liam's assumption, which seems comforting at first glance, but we are quickly reminded of Airy's quiet depravity. When Airy spots that Liam has the broken pieces of the cassette player that had almost fallen on Soda Bottle earlier in the series, he asks Liam to give it to him since he wants it. Liam agrees, only on the condition that Airy returns everyone home tonight, to which Airy reluctantly replies he'll do it tomorrow. If you noticed, Liam had begged Airy to stop One earlier in the episode after an emotional outburst that informed Airy exactly how morally deplorable his actions were, to which Airy refuses insistently to send anyone back. Yet now, Airy agrees only when there is something that he personally gains from sending the contestants home. For someone who only cares about his own pleasure, it makes sense that Airy would only agree to send anyone home if it means he gets to retrieve his precious cassette player that he lost inside the plane. As Airy and Liam cross a slippery bridge atop a waterfall, Liam slips and Airy catches him, directly showing how Airy doesn't want any harm to befall Liam. However, as his zipper opens and the sticky notes and charger fall into the river, Liam frantically jumps after them. He sobs when he realizes the notes, which are his only means of ever returning to Earth, are gone. We cut to Airy and Liam having a conversation by a campfire, where Airy explains what he did over the past 10 years that he's been alone in this universe.
I found a way to bring people from different places onto the planet. Once they were on the planet, they all got pretty scared, so the best thing I could think of is to say it was a show. They would do challenges, get eliminated, and one would win. It sounded fun, but I didn't get very far. After Calculatory was the first one eliminated, I told them the next challenge was to throw your rock as far as you can. When I dropped the first one, it crushed the whole planet and the contestants were killed too. At the time, I didn't know how to respawn any of them, so it just ended the competition there. I spent the next years making sure the next competition would be better. Now, I think I'm doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, Texty had a point. They need to get rid of this guy. I really don't understand people who are dedicated fans of him.
He was the best guy around.
What about the people he murdered?
What murder?
As Texty once again suggests the same solution, he asks if Liam brought the charger, as a 20% battery warning flashes on screen. Liam realizes that since he lost the charger in the river, Texty is definitely going to die soon. Feeling guilty, he cries himself to sleep while Airy creepily smiles as he hosts the next challenge. The next day, Liam checks Airy's computer while he's away, and he finds a list of new contestants, some of which are people he and Bryce personally knew in the real world. Airy is going to host a 3rd season. The fight between Airy and Backpack is chilling, to say the least. There's no music, no spoken words, just Backpack flinging an axe around as Airy frantically dodges his attacks. However, when Backpack is stuck under the tree, mirroring his injury in the fake world, I found myself holding my breath. The audience is forced to grapple with the silent question: would Airy eliminate Backpack in real life? Sure, he seemed relatively kind during Backpack's whole stay, making a bed for him and explicitly telling him that he wasn't going to lead Backpack into a trap. But now that Backpack has revealed his true intentions and tried to physically hurt Airy, the only event we've seen him display any emotion towards, we are left to wonder if Airy is capable of eliminating Backpack when he's vulnerable, in order to guarantee his own safety. He doesn't. Despite how Airy has demonstrated time and time again that he only cares about himself, he wasn't lying about not harboring any ill intent towards Backpack. Airy has proven that he doesn't feel an ounce of sympathy towards any of the people who confronted him about ruining their lives, instead viewing them as perfect contestants and wanting to host another season of one for his own enjoyment. But even so, there's a disconnect between Airy's morality and the gratification he receives from his inhumane actions. Airy might end up regretting eliminating Backpack. After all, he's the only person Airy's met in this abandoned forest for over a decade. However, we know that Airy is fully capable of unaliving people and not batting an eye, as shown with the first season of One. Ultimately, Airy's passive dismissiveness is what saves Backpack's life. Airy wouldn't feel any gratification from hurting Backpack at this moment, so he chooses not to. It's as simple as that. We have an unsettling track play as Airy creates a makeshift splint in bed, allowing Backpack to live. Twice now. And then... well, that's anticlimactic. Airy dies. Not in some huge cathartic fight or some extremely painful way. The audience is reminded that Airy's life is as insignificant as any of the players in one. There is no karma, there is no fairness, just a sudden death that could have happened at any point during the series of one. Yet in the final sequence of the show, there is a contradiction to this inherent lack of Airy's importance in the universe. The final sequence displays how Airy made sure that his death would have meaning. We as an audience are finally offered a glimpse into Airy's past, and it's nothing remarkable. He died in a sudden car crash, got sent to the waiting room, an empty one I have to mention, meaning that he had no lingering attachment to the real world. While playing with the radio, he ends up in the alternate universe, the empty forest. He's completely alone, with seemingly no one to remember him in the real world. He finds a computer and constructs a planet. So why did Airy create one? Or at least, why did he teleport innocent people to the plane in the first place? Did the seemingly never-ending time he spent in the woods drive him mad? Did the lack of object interaction completely stunt his ability to socialize and empathize with others? Is that why, even when he lost 6 innocent people's lives due to his own gross mishap, that he couldn't stop himself from continuing? I think we can argue it's a mix of all of these. One was the meaning Airy had created for himself, his last-ditch effort to have some sort of control over his death, which mattered to no one. His last-ditch effort to serve a purpose, to feel useful, to feel less lonely. Unlike other game show hosts depicted in media, Airy is not some maniacal mastermind who takes joy in seeing others struggle. Rather, he's more similar to a sociopath that watches people in fear or pain without any awareness of how it would feel to be in their shoes. The decade he spent alone forced him to lose any sense of self-awareness, and thus any sense of self-reflection that could have possibly allowed him to acknowledge the wrong he's done. Completely detached from repercussions, Airy would have likely continued hosting new seasons of one until he got bored. After cracking himself on the rocks, Airy ends up in the waiting room, now modeled after his time spent in the shed in the woods. Despite having no such place on Earth in his prior life, Airy finally has a place that he has an emotional connection to. Yet, because he's genuinely gone for good, no one in the plane can escape. The only person capable of sending them home, and ironically the last hope for Backpack being able to accomplish anything in the series, is gone. So how does it end? Well, there is one more scene, but it doesn't offer much. Backpack attempts to speak to Texty, but the laptop is dead. He walks to the computer in the shed and sits down. He's trapped in the woods, just like Airy, forever. Senti is shown sobbing in Soda Bottle's arms, with the other contestants beside them, now with the hopeless realization that they can't escape. They're trapped in the plane, forever. What's interesting about this open ending is that regardless of how you interpret it, there is a bleak spot. Even if Backpack somehow figures out a way to send the contestants home, he can't go back to Earth alongside them. He has to die in order to be sent to the waiting room since Texty is gone, and the sticky note with Earth's frequency was lost in the river. So he's never going to be able to grab a drink with Bryce that he promised. It's bleak. And it's realistic. If I could use 2 words to describe how one subverts the object show genre, it would be those. I encourage you to check out the One series, because I still can't do its genius justice. Please like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to my channel. I'm new to YouTube, and while I'm still figuring things out here, any support from you all will be greatly appreciated. Look forward to more videos of me talking about random things I'm interested in. Anchor's up, Catharsis out.